Okay. All right. So, before we get started, if you want to pause and then let's set up for watching it. So, if you want to open up the scoreboard. Yep. Scoreboard. Yep. And then next to your champion, where it shows your movement speed, could you click that little triangle as well? Yeah. Perfect. Cool. So, Um, games start essentially at level 1, right? So
Mhm.
why don't you talk me through, like, at this point, what are you thinking about? What are some things that you're planning for? And then we can go from there.
Yeah, so I always look at the mid jungle matchup first.
Okay.
It's stacks, so I feel like I can be ganked from weird angles,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to be aware of Annie's stun plus Zack's CC. That's something that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I don't do it too well this game, but I get away with it in the laning phase. And I'm also looking at my own matchup versus Annie, like what are her trading, what is her trading pattern,
Yeah,
and how she can outdamage me.
absolutely. Totally makes sense. Your rune choice. Let's see. Biscuit. Okay. Why don't you talk me through your runes a little bit? Why did you choose the ones you went?
So I feel like I could gain a lot of gold on Annie using first strike.
Mm-hmm.
I could have gone area. I feel like I could have because she went first strike as well. So I feel like I could have done more heavy trading. But this is like something I'm not sure because I'm not sure how good the Annie players are. Sometimes,
Sure.
they're like whatever, but sometimes they're like they really know how to, control the wave and
Mm-hmm.
know when to harass. So I just go first strike just because I feel like scaling is good most of the time.
Yeah, so that's fair. Actually, Victor's most common runes are First Strike, and it's because Victor has this unique advantage of his laser, and his laser outranges basically almost every skill shot that
Yeah.
most mid laners can offer, and he can cast it while moving. So it's a very powerful tool, and Annie's weakness, maybe her only weakness at this stage, is the range, right? So like
Mhm.
the way to play against Annie is you want to make sure that you're always keeping her at arm's length. So tempo. There's a few other like elementary fundamental concepts I would say are worth researching, and one of them is
Mhm.
called tethering. Are you
Okay.
familiar with tethering by any chance?
Yeah. Yeah. So just
Yeah,
like playing to a champion's range.
right, exactly. So Annie is a short range mage, right?
Hmm.
So for her to maintain the wave, she's going to be spamming her Q. And if her Q is on cooldown, I mean, I think it refunds the cooldown as well, actually. So there's not too many openings against her Q. However, every time your E is up, you're going to be able
Hmm.
to harass her with it. So your goal essentially against Annie is to minimize some of that damage that she could do by roaming, right?
Yeah.
So first strike totally makes sense here. You're not looking for that early domination with the airy or the bone plating or that type of rune set. So I like your runes here. The biscuits give you some extra sustain, so you can stay out until you get your chapter. I think it's a good choice. So let's go ahead and start the VOD, and then I can watch how you kind of play out the early game and give some pointers.
So I was thinking to myself,
Yeah.
I probably have priority. I can probably push this wave just
Uh
because
huh.
Annie starts Q. I probably have more push.
Okay.
So I was trying to do like a three-wave crash into a bounce here,
Okay.
but I'm not
And
sure.
what would be your plan by doing that?
And then I would freeze it to like near my tower, and
Mm,
then the jungler's my duo, and then I'll have him gank. That was like my game plan.
yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty good game plan. And actually, that's what I suggest a lot of students do, especially with the Victor, because Victor can hold the waves really well with the W, right? And so
Mhm.
when you do that, you're essentially forcing your opponent into committing to the push, which sets them up for a gank. So I really like that strategy, and I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I don't
So
think I executed it.
yeah, that's the second layer, right? I do like that you're guarding here as well. Why don't you talk me through the level 1 thought process? Like your duo with Sejuani, she's planning to
Mhm.
invade. How come you didn't just go with her? I'm curious.
Because I thought Nautilus was still hovering on his red.
I
So
see.
that's why I warded it.
Got it.
But yeah, I'm
Um,
not sure of what I've done here.
yeah, actually, if you go back a little bit, one thing I recommend is utilizing that ward. So when you come out of the gates, the best route to take is into that mid lane bush. So if you rewind one more time, let's go all the way back actually, right as you're coming out of the gates.
Okay.
So when you have this home guard, right, the best place to go is actually into that bush right above you, because one,
This
you
one?
can get there first before anyone else and see if there's maybe an early invade. And if you don't see anything, you can actually ward that pixel brush on your way out if you wanted to.
This,
So
this
that's
bush right here?
actually I can't see your mouse. That's kind of weird.
Oh.
So you see the bush in the river?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is always a good one to ward early
Yeah,
because you'll be
this
there
one?
first.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be risky, like in this case, it is a Nautilus, but I think your bot lane spots them out eventually being bot side. So if you're thinking like, oh, Zach might come from that side and or steal his red for starters, you want to utilize that ward so you spot that out, right? So
Okay.
if Zach were to take red and then do Krugs and then raids, you have to think about like where's the best place for this word. So the first suggestion I had was that pixel brush. But if you
Okay.
think Zach is starting red, then the ramp for sure. This ramp, if
Yeah,
you go
this
to
one
the
right
left,
here.
yeah, because you want to spot out
Mhm.
Zach if he's ganking you from behind.
Yeah, that's one thing that that
hmm
really messed up my jungle tracking this game because I
Yeah,
wasn't sure where Zac started, and then
right.
my jungler was telling me that he probably was at his red,
hmm
so it just threw me off this game.
Gotcha.
So
Let's press play and see what your bot lane does, and maybe you can garner some information from that, right? So,
Minions have
like, at
spawned.
this moment, if you think that, yeah, okay. So if you think that Zach is starting red, that ward doesn't tell you too much, right? Because once he does red, where's he going to go, right? He could go for the Krugs, he could go for the raids, and you wouldn't know that. So that's why you have to play scared. However,
yeah,
you know that your jungler's topside, and so if you warded closer to the raids, you could see if he was potentially trying to gank you from behind. So thinking about the next step versus like, oh, is he starting red, right? So like
mhm.
right now, you can also see that their bot lane is coming late. So it's kind of safe to assume that he actually started blue. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I didn't even see that.
Yeah. So like, there's a lot of things to watch for in that level one, and I want to encourage like thinking about the next step, right? So regardless of where they start,
Mhm.
cool. So let's see. Do you know much about like XP tracking?
Oh, like when I hit level 2?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 7 minions and then like 14 minions.
What? Okay, sweet. So you know when you get access to your full kit, right? That's really important.
Yeah,
So it looks like you weren't able to execute that
yeah,
bounce very well. Let's rewind and see what happened here.
yeah. I definitely need help with this.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is I hit level 2 off that
hmm
7th minion.
Yeah. And you have your Q up, right?
Yeah,
So you want, sorry, your E. So you want
my
to
yeah.
proc that first strike here, and then start constantly trimming this wave, right? So one way that you could do that is by, I was gonna say, Eing that last minion over there, so that you get the last hit as well. Um, let me see how you use your E's here. Okay.
Should I just be constantly trimming here, like just constantly auto attacking?
Yeah, let's pause and rewind a little bit, and then we can talk about this
Okay.
whole sequence.
Alright, yeah.
So I have a decent amount of feedback here. So
Okay.
go even further back, actually. Go even further back. So your plan right now is you want to crash the first two waves and play to your top side because you know your jungler's there, right?
Right, yeah.
So you're on the right track. You want to commit to the shove regardless of like what this Annie does. So right here, for instance, is your Q up? I just wanted to see.
How do I see that?
Double click your character on the left side. Yeah. So your
Okay.
Q's
Yeah.
up, right? So
Uh-huh.
one thing you want to be doing is also, it's not just about maintaining the wave, it's about your body language, right? What are you suggesting that you want to do to your opponent? So are you using Q on the wave or are you using Q on Annie, right? So that harass kind of puts your opponent on the back foot too, right? Because they don't know like, oh, is he playing aggressively? Why is he pushing? Should I let him push? They're also playing their own version of the game. So right here, for instance, if you were to Q and auto, that would shove in the
Uh-huh.
wave even faster, right? So like in the early game, using your Q off cooldown is almost free. Like Victor, it's such a low cost ability that you can do it almost off cooldown. The one thing I would recommend is making sure that you're hitting the Q on the champion and not on the minions. So, one, you're optimizing for that harass, you're pushing and bullying your enemy, and you're trimming the wave with those autos. So, like, since you're not playing for the kill here, right? Because Victor, like, can't get early kills reliably himself. You want to be able to,
Yeah.
like, Q her and then auto the minions. Q her, auto the minions. That's kind of the
Okay.
pattern to get that shove in. Does that make sense?
Yes. That is.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Yeah.
Let's press play, and then I wanted to see how you're using your E's, because that's also like crucial for Victor gameplay. So we can go into Victor in detail once we watch a part of this game, and then I can tell you like everything that I know.
Sweet. Yeah. I really like him.
Yeah.
But I would say like one thing, like my jungler is like very demanding, so he always wants me to like shove and move with him to jungle.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I don't know
right
if you
now
put the best.
he's assuming there's vertical jungling going on. So for his like strategy right now,
Uh-huh.
I mean you're kind of in a risky spot because the three-way bounce didn't work here.
Yeah, exactly. And then, okay, I remember I'm calling him because I know I'm telling him my wave is like screwed right now.
Right.
Or not yet, but
So like, what could you do to better this situation, or is
Huh.
it kind of like you're telling him to come? So like, okay, so yeah, so the problem here is that like, okay, let's say your three-wave bounce didn't work, right? If you go
Yeah.
back, if we go back to that state that it was in,
yeah, this,
so one thing I encourage students to do, especially when you're playing mid lane, is commit to the lane state, right? So you know that your three-wave bounce didn't work. However, what have you been doing this entire time? You've been slow pushing, right?
yeah, I've been slow pushing.
So
Yeah.
at that moment, you have to decide, oh shit, do I keep slow pushing because it's going to put me in a weird spot? Or do I take advantage of the slow push and turn it into a fast push, right? So
Uh-huh.
right now, the other option that you have here is unloading all of your abilities on that wave and then walking backwards, and taking the least damaging route is the best option, I would say. And
Okay.
that's one thing that like a lot of league players don't consider, right? Like if you're in a bad situation, right? How do you take the least worst situation out of this? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the least worst situation in this case, right? You've got a slow
Uh-huh.
push going. You can EQ, auto the wave, and then leave, right? The worst
Yeah.
case, you might miss a cannon. But that's okay, because you could still walk into that bush above you, get the EXP, and then safely come back once you have a sense of like, okay, I think Zach is probably gone now. Or my jungler is closer, so he can actually help me now if Zach does come.
Right.
Does that make
So,
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also noticed that Annie is shoving too. So she wants to
Well,
trim the wave.
Yeah, she's trying to trim the wave. So you can kind of tell by her body language that she is actually trying to set up for a gank. And maybe
Ah.
so that's the thing about League, right? Mid
Yeah.
lane, it's all a mind game, right? So if you watch Annie's body language up until this moment, it's very passive. She's a book, she's a script. However, at this
Oh.
moment, she's walking up. So you know something's off. You know that she's trying to get in range of you. So, like, reading into that a little bit and detecting movement patterns will, one, help you shoot your skill shots more accurately in the future, plus kind of give you a hint, like, okay, why is she walking up in this instance? It doesn't really make sense, right? Like, she's
Yeah.
she's a level below you. Her lane's not shoving. So it would be a really bad trade for her because she would eat your Q and your E, and then she would lose really hard. She wouldn't gain anything from it, right?
Yeah.
So reading that and utilizing that actually, because then what it means is she's predictable, but you're not. So like mid lane is all about those mind games, and I can explain more as we go. Essentially, what happens in mid lane is you do this dance, and I'm sure you've seen it in many games that you've played. Generally, mid laners will play to the side of their jungler, and the other player will mimic that position on the opposite side. So if you go to the right, she'll go to the left. If you go to the left, she'll go to the right. Because they want to stay like as far away as possible, and especially a lot of elos here. So
Yeah.
reading into like, okay, where is she positioning now? If she positioned above you, it's probably safe to assume Zach probably crossed over. She might be hugging her Zach. If she positions below you and starts walking up, you know Zach's there. Like you just know. So that's one thing I would suggest practicing as you go through your games. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry, can you repeat that one more time? Like
Yeah.
the body language.
Yeah. So body language, right? When you're playing any matchup, there's always a movement pattern that your opponents do, and when you and how do I explain it? So, for instance, there's two things you want to consider when you're playing. Actually, three things. Let's keep it at three things. The three things you want to consider when you're a mid laner versus another mage, especially mage versus mage, you mimic each other's movements. So, for instance, you're on the left side, right? On blue side. She's going to be on the top right. She's going to be diagonal to you. The moment you move down, she's going to move up, for instance. And that's the predictable dance that you guys play. The other part of that is playing to the side of your jungler, right? It's always, I mean, assuming equal skill, I don't know that all people are considering this, but it's also like, it's 2 minutes and 43 seconds. She's walking up to you, under leveled. So there's something suspicious going on, right? So you can also use that to your advantage, though, right? So for instance, if you are able to successfully recreate that dance over and over, you know what she's thinking. You know that she's playing that diagonal game. You know that she's not really processing where her jungler is. She's just trying to stay as far away as possible. But the moment she starts doing something that's not in that pattern, then you know you're getting set up for a gank. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good way to see it because I don't always I do the left right thing where you play to the side of the jungler. Sometimes I switch it up and then they'll go to the other side to set my jungler up for that gank.
Right.
But I never thought about like if they break that pattern, something's gonna happen.
And that's the mind game that you're playing, especially like if it's mage versus mage. When it's assassin, it's even scarier, right? Because that assassin is prepping to jump onto your face.
Yeah.
So here in this instance, my recommendation: use all the abilities on the wave, pummel that wave as hard as you can, and walk up into that bush up top.
Okay.
At least until your jungler is more ready to help you. Because right now he's clearly not trying to help you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's press play. Actually, you get the cannon here. Yeah. You could just leave, yeah.
I remember saying I greeted for the cannon too.
The other thing, actually, if you look at that gank, if you want to rewind really quickly.
Yeah.
How do you think that gank played out?
I think he didn't do too good of a job.
From you mean Zach?
From Zach, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so indecisive here.
Right. You don't know that though right now, right? So Zach walks into your lane.
Oh, what? Okay, that was weird.
I actually think you might have been able to play the flash a little more conservatively.
Yeah.
The reason being, Annie has already blown her stun. She only has one more damage ability to follow up, right?
Yeah.
So saving that flash there might have been an okay choice too.
Yeah, I don't think I needed to flash there. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what are you thinking right now, like this whole time after the gank?
So I'm thinking I'm gonna get re-ganked because I
Uh-huh.
blew my flash.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna last hit right now.
Okay. But what's
And
happening to your lane? Like, where's your lane?
so I have 6 minions. He has 5 minions. Okay, so it's slow pushing into him.
Right. So you're still in the situation where you're not committing to the slow push or the fast push, and you think Zach's going to come back. The
Yeah.
other thing that you haven't done is you didn't ward anything. So you're kind of not setting yourself up to have that safe laning phase, right? So
Yeah.
after Zach ganks, you blow your flash, right? Your lane is still kind of in that weird in-between state, and you're focusing on trading Annie versus focusing on using your cooldowns on the wave. So that's one thing that I encourage students to ask themselves every time they're in a situation where they're worried or they're overthinking is think about like, okay, shit, why am I nervous? Well, it's because I didn't commit to my lane. So I didn't commit to any lane state here. I'm not letting her push, and I'm not pushing her in fast enough. So one option that you could do here is after the gank, if you rewind a little bit, do you know how long Yellow Ward cooldown is?
No, I don't. I do not know.
I think they last around 90 seconds to about 100 seconds in the early game. So knowing that, like, okay, you see Zach pathing top, and you know that Sejuani took his top side, right?
Yeah.
So you have a couple options. One, you can commit to the push really quickly right now, or so commit to the push and play to your bot side, right? Because your Sejuani is now gonna path bot, or you just completely walk away and you give this up. Those are your two options here. The third option is back up to your tower for a little bit and see if Zach goes top, right? Because Caitlyn is at Mundo's tower right now. So knowing that and the fact that at 3:30 Scuttle will spawn, you can probably safely assume that Zach is either going to gank Caitlyn or go for his Scuttle. So in the moment, ask the question that I want you to start with is, what am I doing with this lane? What is happening to this lane? And then deciding, okay, do I want to fast push? Do I want to reset? Do I want to play back? Am I in threat? Is there a threat of, again, another gank, right?
Right.
And that's how, those are like inputs that you use to decide, okay, is Zach going to come back or is it kind of a waste of his time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a question about this specific frame right here.
Sure.
I see that there's 4 caster minions for Annie.
Mhm.
What if I just back up? Will this wave slow push into me?
It would. Yeah. So this would slow push into you, right? Because the melees are going to fight each other. So that's the other option that I was saying in the beginning, right? Back up to your tower and then let Zach go do something that's probably more efficient.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that I think I'll keep that in mind next.
So again, if you're worried, there's a couple things that you can ask yourself. One is the lane state that I just mentioned. The second thing that I talked about earlier is, what is the least damaging option in this moment, right? Because you're no longer playing for maximum efficiency. You're not playing to kill this Annie. What are you playing for? You're playing for, how do I minimize this early game, right? You're playing for, how do I get as much CS as I can? I have TP, she does not. So what can I set up for, like a Sejuani gank, for instance? Because you know she's pathing bot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So starting to consider your new set of options is I would say that mid lane is cognitively the hardest like lane to pick up, because every moment your set of options changes. And so what I try to do in my coaching sessions is like, iterate, like reiterate and reemphasize what are those options at any given moment. What are those options that you should be thinking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Do you want to continue? Let's press play again.
Okay, so yeah, that's a dumb E.
No worries. I have some exercises if you want to learn how to get better with Viktor E's. I can show you what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm definitely not committed to whatever my plan is right now.
Your wave's in this weird spot. Also, your yellow ward is just about to come up. So right here, placing that in the river above you would give you a lot of knowledge on what Zach's trying to do, right? One, he's probably trying to do the scuttle, and I'm not saying that because I know that I can see it on vision. It's because scuttle spawns at 3:30, and Sejuani took his top side, right? Like the thing that he's gonna do is that top scuttle. So, yeah.
Yeah. So right now I'm actually calling for him. Like I'm just telling him like come and help me shove in. So he comes, yeah. But
yeah,
I didn't know Zach was there.
Yeah, so in those moments where like you're calling your jungler, but you can't really rely on like his response. I mean, yeah, he comes. That's good. But if it wasn't your duo, right? Like understanding that like, okay, my jungler's probably not gonna come. You know, he might not come. And in those instances, how do you kind of create an opening for yourself? You know?
Yeah. I guess that's the least damaging route sometimes.
Least damaging route. So we can talk a little bit about like, what's it called? When I say least damaging route, I'm not talking about Viktor specifically. I'm actually talking about control mages. So control mages, like some of the elementary concepts that I would consider control mage fundamentals are like minimizing the early game, identifying win conditions, and then knowing when to help your jungler and where, right? So like those are ways to play the mid to early game as a control mage. The other big thing is tracking your enemy. So like reading into what does my enemy want to do, because knowing how they are playing the game also helps you understand how you should play the game, right? Because at higher elos, everyone knows what Viktor does, right? Level 1 Viktor oppressive, level 2 Viktor oppressive. Everyone knows that. So how do you then create windows of opportunities that are not obvious?
Okay.
Yeah, I know that's a little vague, but I can give you like, you know, very specific direction. So if you want to pause for a moment, one thing that I notice is like when you're shooting your E's, you're choosing either Annie or the minions. And when you do that, you're signaling to the enemy that your 1 damage ability is now on cooldown. Granted, this Annie doesn't punish you, but for example, if you're trying to climb, someone will punish you. So one thing I suggest is practicing 2 things. 1, practicing shooting your E while you're moving backwards so that you still tag the enemy. And 2, like practicing managing the wave with your E as well. So like there's a practice tool exercise that I can give you after this that helps you master Viktor E. But tethering that E is essentially crucial. The other thing that I want to make sure you walk away with is that never walk forward when your E is on cooldown, because you don't have that ability anymore. So those are 3 things about his E that I want you to practice in your next like 20 to 50 games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me write this down.
Yeah. I'll give you after the game review. We'll go into a practice tool and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I won't forget. Like that's super crucial to Viktor.
Yeah, I think practice cool's down too.
Oh, is it? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay. We can talk about it and then we can always hop on another call and I can show you visually like what it looks like if it's down right now. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's press play again.
I should have dropped ult, but I ran out of mana.
You did run out of mana, and actually, I don't think you should have gone for that trade at all, because what is Annie doing right now? She's doing what I suggested you do. She used all her mana to get the push in for the cannon wave, and then she's recalling. Obviously, she didn't do a very good job,
Yeah.
but she was on the right track.
Yeah.
Actually, what I was going to say, if you rewind a little bit, I am shocked she didn't all-in you. And I can
like
show you
slash
where.
R.
I can show you where if you rewind one more time. Right here. She should have all-ined you. Right there.
Yeah.
Because one, you don't have flash, and she probably didn't know that she was hitting 6 before you. So that XP tracking is super crucial. Do you know when you hit level 6?
I don't.
Yeah. So you hit level 6 on the 9th wave. So the third cannon wave is when you hit level 6. So you can use that to your advantage to surprise 6 people. Depending on like if you've stayed out in lane, like you noticed, you hit it around 540. If you had to recall, you hit it around 6 minutes, 620.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
620. Yeah.
So right here, let's see how you play this. So back there, I'm surprised she didn't try to just all-in you. She also doesn't have Ignite, so her kill pressure is a little bit lower than it normally would be. Do you have any specific questions that maybe we didn't talk about in that early game?
So was that an okay place to recall? Because I saw like 3 minions. I thought it was going to freeze. And
I think that's a totally fine place to recall. Okay. So what generally, and that's a great place to ward. So actually, it's normally a great place to ward. I think in this game, I would have warded the bot side because you know that Zach is now going to go back to his bot side, right? Because he started that side. So bot Pixel Brush would have been better here, especially because your jungler is re-invading.
Yeah, so I recognized that, so I wanted to shove just in case. Now I saw Zach bot, but in case of Zach was there, because he calls for me if he invades red.
Right.
Just to move with them, usually.
Right,
so
okay. So in that case, you should definitely ward that bot side and start pathing up, right? Playing with your jungler. There's an E exercise I want you to do, but look how far range that is. Look at that range. Like, Annie is nowhere near you, and she can't even play the game if all you do is tether that range. So we'll hop into that exercise at the end.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Interesting. Actually, you walk away from your jungler completely here into. If Zach was there, you're dead.
Because he saw Zach bot, and then I wanted to check if Zach was doing dragon.
I see. Is
that not good?
I would not recommend going down the river like that because Zach. Okay, so if you want to pause for a moment, Zach does not solo dragon very well, right? He's not a solo dragon champion. And right now, you know that bot lane is still in bot lane. So the chances of him doing dragon are very low. The other thing is, Zach doesn't necessarily need to get blue buff. If he was hovering that area, once you're in the river, you're in a dangerous spot. This Annie has Ghost Flash. She's going to run you down if Zach was there. So, like, knowing that if a jungler started bot side around 6:30 to 7 minutes, they're going to be back bot side, will help you like think about that also as well. Like because they're going to go like the jungle clear pattern is predictable, right?
Yes.
If they're doing the maximum, if they're optimizing for their clear, it's pretty predictable. So you know right now Zach could be bot. So I wouldn't recommend that at all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't do it. Okay. So don't go into river alone.
Especially as Viktor against Annie Zach. The other thing is like Viktor is pretty mediocre at skirmishing in the early game, right? Especially against an Annie. So actually, I think you guys lose 2v2 overall unless you've had the opportunity to poke this Annie down a bunch.
Yeah.
So, generally speaking, that doesn't mean you have to play scared. It means that you should be playing to your maximum E range and basically trimming this wave and trying to get to your chapter, which you already have, and looking for like later roams and team fights right now. Because your skirmish is not very strong. You also have a Caitlyn top, which is kind of not very helpful. So there's a risk in this early game here.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatting in this game. I'll say a lot of it was chatting. Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually an opportunity to call your jungler down, so I'm a little disappointed that he went top, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, I think they're trying to make a play. I can't remember though.
And here you see Annie going top. She pink wards, I think.
Oh yeah,
no, she just regular
saved
wards. And it looks like you opt to shoving the wave back. Can I ask why?
I have no clue. I think because I just saw it off the map.
Gotcha.
So I'm just trying to shove and back. I think that's probably what I was
Gotcha.
thinking.
How much gold do you have right now?
How do I see that?
I think it's X if you press X on the screen. Yeah. So you're sitting on 1K. What item do you think you want to build in this game?
I built Leandries. Just because they're beefy.
Yeah, makes sense. So what item are you looking to build on your next back is, I guess, my more specific question.
I think like an amp tone probably.
Amp tone? Okay.
Yeah.
Why? I'm just curious.
So like, I forgot what it's called, but that 900 book, the 900 thing, and I can build towards Leandries.
Okay. So normally I would say great route, right? You want to go Leandries. There's a Mundo, there's a Zac. You don't really 100 to 0 those people. So Leandries is definitely the better option. But here, there's a lot of considerations to make on your build path if you want to pause for a moment. So when you think about what you want to build, you want to optimize for the way that you're playing the game, right? So right now, what would a little AP do for you? What do you think? It gets you, I think Codex gets you around 35 AP and 10 ability haste. What would you do with that extra stat?
I would use it probably just to harass. Try to do more damage.
Okay. I will pose an alternative here. And this is actually it might be more dependent on your playstyle, more so than what's the right or wrong call. So building towards your mythic, never the wrong call. I don't want you to think that I'm saying it's wrong. I just want you to think about, okay, what does this get me towards doing in the next minute, 2 minutes, before I can think about finishing my mythic, right? So right now, the game that you've been playing is kind of tethering Annie and figuring out how to support your jungler, right, if he needed it. That's the game that you're playing. In that case, building tier 2 boots here and using it to gain some of that like lane control and momentum is a super viable option because you're worried about the all-in from Annie, right? She can flash or ghost on top of you. But if you have tier 2 boots and you've mastered your E tethering, she's never going to be able to reach or catch you. Right. And there's an extra bonus of you being able to support your jungler first. So one thing I encourage you trying is chapter into tier 2 boots, or sometimes when I play Viktor, I go tier 2 boots first because I know how to manage his mana so well. So because again, like I said, Viktor's ultimate like his strength is his E, right? No one's ever going to catch you when you're casting your E. So with tier 2 boots, no one's ever going to even threaten touching you. Yeah. So I would recommend trying that next time. It gets you to the play faster. It gets you to supporting your jungler faster. And you don't really need that 30 AP right now, you know? You're not trying to poke this Annie out of lane. You're trying to poke her in a way that you're pushing the lane into the tower, and you're looking for like some of those roams. So depending on what you're planning to do for the next 2 minutes, that's how I would think about your build paths. Like Leandri's is totally the gold standard here. You definitely want it, but there's little steps that you can take to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's smart. I'll think about that. Tier 2
Yeah.
boots. Because yeah. Okay. Got it.
Definitely. Cool. So you decide to roam here. Is that because Sejuani was looking for a gank bot?
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
I shoved my tower, so I had some downtime.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but we get the kill here. I don't.
So I actually don't recommend this roam.
Oh.
I think you get the kill afterwards, kind of by luck, right? I'm assuming that was
Yeah.
a Kaisa W.
W. Yeah.
Right. So the reason I don't recommend this roam is because you didn't have your ultimate.
Oh.
Did you notice that? I think before. I don't think you had your ultimate at that point. If you rewind twice,
yeah, I didn't.
you don't have your ultimate. So what are you providing in this team fight?
Yeah, W and E, I guess.
Right.
Not
one, the enemy bot lane has already started to kind of back. So the chances, I guess the way to think about roaming is like the percent chance that this is going to be successful, right? So when you started that roam, it was probably like a 60% chance that it was going to be successful because Sejuani has so much lockdown. But the further you got down river, the lower and lower and lower that got, especially because you don't have your ultimate. And they probably saw you on a ward, so at that point, they're just like full retreat, full retreat. Viktor's a pretty weak roamer, I would say. At least until you get your E upgrade and you have your ultimate. So like, knowing that, yeah, you have some downtime, but maybe the best option there was go back and get some tier 2 boots while you get a free recall.
Yeah, that's probably smarter.
I mean, things really work in your favor, so it's not. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the wrong choice. It's just like if you're playing in a game where that roam didn't go according to plan, then you've just wasted like a minute of your time.
Yeah. So I say I definitely got pretty lucky there, and I felt like I was doing pretty good at this time just because I was up CS, up a kill.
Yeah, I think you're doing really good at this time, actually. I mean, you've got around like 8 CS a minute. You've got good like lane pressure. Zach has only ganked you once. Things are going really good. You have your E upgrade, so now you just auto shove waves and look to support your Sejuani, right? That's how you should play this mid game.
Yeah, but we had some questionable like roams. Like, yeah, you'll see.
Sure.
Like it's. The game was so thrown too. Like,
I see.
I think
so you guys ended up losing this game?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you wondering why you lost or what you could have done better to prevent the loss?
I don't think it was winnable to a certain point because everyone's Caitlyn and Kaisa started arguing.
See.
But I think I could have played better, like individually as well.
Gotcha. I like what you're doing here. This is a really powerful move that I try to tell people to do. Is pulling the minions down a little bit to freeze it in front of your tower. Always a good call. It forces your opponent to like worry. I mean, it forces them to change their plan, right? It forces them. But now you're starting to push back. Is that because you saw Annie go bot?
I saw Annie. Yeah, I'm pinging Annie to going bot, so I'm gonna hard push.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. We're pinging them like crazy, but...
It looks like they backed off, so that roam sucks for her. One thing I would suggest is practicing hitting the entire wave when you do those E's, so that, you know, you're hitting everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, what am I doing here?
Yeah, what are you thinking here? That's a great question.
Oh, dragon.
Okay. What's the timer on dragon? Actually, we don't know, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Will soon fall.
And you roam bot. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted bot to get prio. That's what I remember.
Okay.
And we had no idea Zach was there either.
Actually, let's turn off that fog of war if we can. That way when we're talking about those things, we don't actually know what the answer is. Okay, turn it back on, and then where it says all, click blue. There you go. So this is what you guys see right now, right?
Yeah, no Zac at all.
Right, so even E's like that right there. One thing to make sure you do is hit the entirety of the wave.
Got it.
I noticed you didn't throw down your W in that.
Yeah, I didn't. Because I thought I was gonna miss it.
Okay, so do you want to talk about Viktor's W real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's rewind a little bit here. So
right here.
yeah, at any point. So so Viktor's W is useful for many reasons, right? One, it's a bit of a slow. The second thing is it's a zoning tool, right? So right there, let's go back again. Sorry, I think it was a little too far for me. So what I'm trying to say is, like, when you throw down your W, you're forcing your opponent to either flash or change course, right? So if you press play.
Yeah, so I knew Annie's flash was up, so I was probably just like, she's just gonna flash over it, and then she's gonna flash Sejuani anyway. So I think that's why.
That's fair. I think that's fair, but that's not a reason to not use it, right? So, starting with ult is the best choice. I totally agree. But throwing that W, the W positioning is very crucial here, right? So the first W, I would say, is putting that above her, right? Because Sejuani is below her in that first skirmish, right?
Yeah.
So if you throw it above her and Sejuani is below her, where's she going to flash, right? Like, it's really hard for her to pick a direction to flash in. So that actually would have probably resulted in a kill, or she flashes diagonally. Fine, totally fine, and then you don't have to throw down your ult and whatnot. So starting with the W to create that zone it's a bit of a conscious decision that you kind of have to decide in every team fight. So the first one is what I would recommend is above her. So you see where, like, the rock meets the river?
Yeah.
Around there, right? Because you know Sejuani is going to cut her off from below. So that makes it a much harder flash for her to execute as well, right? How many times have you seen pro players flash into a wall because they didn't click far enough, right?
Yeah, a lot.
That makes it a really hard flash for her to execute, and she can't walk down. So start with that, start with ult, and then throw your E, because I noticed that you threw E down first, and then you ulted, and none of that damage really stuck, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a misplay by me for sure.
Yeah. So thinking about how to skirmish, it's also like it takes some practice, but like there's not too much of a cost to throwing down your W first, is what I'm trying to say, especially in situations where, like, you outnumber the opponent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first bit of advice there. Your second W, is there, right? So what's the problem with that W? They kind of just walk around it, right?
Yeah, they just walk around it.
So again, thinking about, like, okay, well, what could I have done to create some space for me and Sejuani, right? Is throw it a little bit lower. So you'll start to see how, like, the W placement is super crucial to how your damage can stick. So if you throw it closer towards the middle of the river, then they're just either going to get slowed or they're going to have to back off. They're not going to be able to walk through it. Yeah, so right here, right in the middle, between you guys, Annie doesn't have flash. How the heck is she going to get back into that fight if it's in the middle? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she stop flashes that.
No worries. And then even that W, what if you threw it further up? So those Ws, I would practice in team fights. Very important.
Okay. Practice W.
And when I say
okay.
and if you're writing down that note, don't just say practice W. Think about W as creating space, right? So when you play a control mage, how do you interact with any team fight? You need space, right? That's why you need a front line. You need a tank, or you need someone to start the play for you. Because you're never going to be the first person in, or you shouldn't be the first person in. Let's put it that way. So a general control mage concept is learning how to use the space around you to optimize for your skill shots. And for each champion, there's a different way to do that. For Viktor, it starts with his W. Like, W is insanely crucial in any skirmish or team fight. And you didn't throw down your W there either, I noticed just now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think he was just like yelling at that point. Yeah.
No worries. How do you choose
hectic.
which Viktor ability to upgrade? I know you start with E usually, but how do you decide that? I'm curious.
I just go E and Q.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. Why do you do E then Q then W?
I want E on low cooldown, and then Q. I guess yeah, that's a good thing. Like if I can Q in range, then I should upgrade Q. But if I can't, I shouldn't be upgrading Q.
So that's one thing. Do you know what each upgrade does exactly?
Oh, like the evolved.
Evolved. Sorry, evolved. Yes.
Yeah. So the Q like speeds me up a little bit. And then I'm not sure what the W does.
Okay.
And then
your
the E has like a second kind of thing on the floor.
Right. So here's something that a lot of Victors don't think about, and I'll posit it to you. You want to do Q if you need that extra mobility in the team fights, right? So you throw down your W, you get that Q, you get that movement speed, you walk in, you walk back out, you throw an E. Like that's the thing that Q enables you to do. If you evolve W second, your E and your Q will slow the enemy. So you want to think about like, okay, what's more important in this situation, right? Is it me being able to Q myself, get a shield, and walk out of this fight? Or is it more important that I slow the enemy, help my team catch up to them, and we continue this fight from a distance?
Okay.
So that's one thing I want you to think about. I'm not saying Q Evolve was wrong here. I think Q Evolve was actually the right choice because they have a shit ton of burst, upfront burst. So you do want that extra shield. But there are plenty of instances where evolving W for a second is really good for that too. It's just an alternate way of thinking. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. That's smart. I never thought about that, so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Consider W depending on the situation.
I mean, you've got pretty damn good mechanics, so I'll tell you that already. So, compared to like, people that I've seen at other skill levels, your movements are pretty good. One thing that is really helpful for control mages is to control your micro a little better. Actually, what you should be doing is clicking close to your character. Do you know what I mean by it when I say that?
You can tell I'm not closing.
No. What I'm saying is these are things that you can practice to be better and more comfortable. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Not that you're not doing it. I don't personally I don't have anything by saying you're not doing it, right? What I'm saying is if you want to get better, is you can start doing that more.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to Viktor is the one champ I want to master for sure.
Heck yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Oh, okay. This is the throw right here. This is the throw.
Okay.
Wait, no, is it? Oh wait, we didn't throw there. What? Okay.
So as we get into this mid game, what are you trying to do as Viktor?
So a lot of times I know a lot of people 5v5 ARAM, but I want to. Sometimes they go bot, I don't know, but I try to push in wherever someone is not if I have TP up. but I don't have TP up, but I took a risk there.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So going into the mid game as Viktor, you have a few options. Like you said, if your TP is up, you want to be maximizing for solo XP, right? EXP.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's a great choice, you know, going in that split push route. The question you have to be asking yourself is, can I answer whoever they send to split push against me, right? Like, you don't always want to be side laning, right? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in this game, probably yes. I think that's fine because it's Mundo that's likely going to answer you, and you have a Leandries, so that Mundo can't touch you right now. You're pretty damn strong. So in this instance,
Shut down.
I actually probably would have just sat bot this whole time and just continued to shove it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. I think you can see like my hesitancy in my character. Should I help them? Should I keep shoving?
And
Yeah, they got destroyed.
the other thing that, like, how do I phrase this? You know how I said commit to the lane state earlier? Commit to your thoughts, right? So the worst thing that you could do in League of Legends overall is second guess. Because when you start second guessing, you do neither the first option nor the second option. And at that point, you're wasting time, right? So every kind of minute that you waste in League is time that you could have been spending doing something else. It's a trade-off. And the main thing to think about is, how do I cross-map in this situation, right? Because it's not that you have to be there for every fight. You don't have to win every fight. You just have to be making the most of every situation that happens. So your team lost that fight, right? Whatever. Imagine you stayed bot lane and you pushed in like 3 waves, got some damage on the tower, recalled, and then TP'd to this dragon with the whole extra item. Like, you'd be stronger, you'd be ready for the dragon, and you got some tower damage, and you got some solo XP. Versus what you chose to do, right? Which I'm not saying it's terrible, but you mopped up 1 kill and then you got a dragon. A little, I mean, the 1 kill was because they overchased too, right? So it's not gonna play out like that in every game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also noticed here that you went for a Void Staff second. You want to talk me through that?
Yeah. I watched like a video like Shadow Flame of they have. I'm assuming they're gonna build magic resist. So I already see magic resist on Zac. I'm pretty sure Bundo's gonna build some. So I was thinking just be ahead of the game and get that Void Staff.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right or not, but
I mean, so Void Staff is actually good if you see even Merc Treads. So you're not wrong. Like, Void Staff is good. I do think there are much better items to abuse your lead, because you're huge right now, man. You're probably the biggest person on this team, 304. Actually, Kaisa has 8 kills, but even then, you know, she's in a duo lane, so it's not the same. You are probably one of the biggest champions in this game. So the question to ask yourself at this stage is, what is my role when it comes to team fights, right? So what do you think your role in this type of composition is as Viktor?
throw E's out. Poke
Okay.
them. I mean, I'm probably not gonna. Oh, we're gonna probably. I mean, I want to fight front to back. But we only have Sejuani, and Sejuani is tanking for 4 of us. But yeah, so I wasn't exactly sure what to do this game actually. Like fighting wise, and you'll see it like in 20 seconds. I think this is where we throw right here.
Oh, well, the main reason I was asking is because you have 2 AD carries on your team and 1 tank. So actually, you don't need to be like hyper carrying or overcompensating with your build. And actually, Void Staff is a very good choice. That's why I was asking you. I wanted to know like why you did that. The other thing is, what about some anti-healing, right? Because they've got Mundo, they've got Zac, they've got Jinx, who probably heals a little bit too, right? So kind of focusing on like, okay, my front to back team will win over time. What can I do to buy them time? Well, what you can do is neutralize their front line. And you do that by Void Staff, Morellonomicon, Oblivion Orb. Like that kind of buys your AD carry some space and will help a lot.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what happens, but
We
I'll
can
just
watch.
show.
We can watch a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll speed it up. I know it's been an hour.
No worries.
But yeah, I think we see Annie. We go into here, and then Zach just jumps on us.
I see.
Yeah, and we all die.
Shut down.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then from there, then on, Zach just keeps jumping on us and just runs us down.
Okay.
We'll die every 5
So there's how do I phrase this? It's hard as a mid laner to not want to follow your duo.
Yeah.
It's hard to be like, no, dude, this isn't the play. But when you've identified that, like, you need to... So that's why a minute ago we were talking about how do you play those team fights out, right? How do you win the game? Your win cons are by creating space for your AD carries. You're not going to run in there with your jungler and kill everybody, right? Like if Zach jumps on you, you know... After this sample, you know that if Zach jumps on you, you guys are kind of screwed. So if you see your jungler chasing a lone Annie into the enemy team, don't follow. Don't... I mean, I know it's going to piss off your duo, but like that's where, like, in solo queue, it's all about your body language, right? Like if you pause it and you start following, your jungler thinks, oh, this guy's coming with me. Versus if you just walk away, ping away, like, is there a reason to be fighting right now? Like, is there a reason for us to be this deep in their jungle right now? Like, we're pushing bot lane. We just got their tower. Caitlyn's not with us. There's no objective that we should be fighting for. Why are we chasing this Annie?
Yeah.
So, like, talking to your duo and having that discussion and being like, hey, when we choose fights, we have to ask ourselves, is this something like is chasing this Annie gonna get us anything, right? And that's a conversation that the two of you need to have, right? Like, not just see champion, run it champion, because chances are, you know, in League of Legends nowadays, the rest of her team is probably running to get to that fight now, right? She's just trying to buy time. She has a Zanya's. She can buy some time. So, like, always asking yourselves those questions before you start a team fight will be super helpful as a duo.
Yeah. I told, like, the whole team, like, through chat after that, like, we can't just be diving in just because we see one person.
Right, because the counter engage from the other team is crazy strong. They have Annie Tibbers, Zach, Nautilus, Jinx. Like, Jinx just has to mop up. She just has to exist and mop up. Whereas you guys have to very carefully play that front to back. Your team is harder to execute, and their counter engage will destroy you.
Yeah,
right.
And that's what we weren't able to do.
Yeah, and it's hard to talk and have that conversation with your team in the game, but crucial to just be like, you know, how simply can I convey this message? Hey guys, play front to back. Don't chase for kills. Simple. And that's the best you could do. The other thing is posturing, right? If you think, hey, this is not a good fight, don't follow. Just you can't help it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sad we lost this game, but
it happens, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any other questions? Or is there anything else I can help, like, clarify or talk about right now?
I think you answered most of my questions. I just gotta execute, like, what we learned.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm committed to a game plan, but I think it was really helpful.
Yeah, kind of at each stage, like, asking yourself, what am I doing with this wave? What does it mean for the next minute of the game, right? And then kind of every time you're in that planning mode, try to plan for your items. Try to figure out your win conditions. Try to figure out when the next objective is and why you should be fighting at that time. And that's the best thing that you could do as a control mage player, right? Because it's also largely not up to you. But what you can do is create those windows with things like landing lots of E-poke on Annie while being high HP, throwing down W's that buy space in team fights, things like that is kind of how you want to play Viktor. I know we wanted to see if Practice Duel was up really quick. Can we check that?